Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Reality Transformation Gathering. This will be a 5-day expansive exploration of the recent breakthrough discoveries in the sciences and quantum theory, psychedelic research, and near-death experience studies, as well as profound and time-tested ancient wisdom from shamanic traditions, indigenous cosmologies, and knowledge from far ancient cultures around the world. I'm Jocelyn Star Feather. I'll be your host and guide for the Reality Transformation Gathering. And today I am delighted to be here with Beth Weinstein. Welcome, Beth. Thank you so much for being a part of this event.
Thank you for having me, Jocelyn. So good to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you with us. So let me introduce you to our audience, Beth, for those who may not know about your work yet. For visionary leaders and entrepreneurs seeking deeper fulfillment and purpose-led impact, Beth offers a transformational, multidimensional approach to growing a business aligned with your soul's mission. Beth is a spiritual business coach and soul liberation guide, 3-time entrepreneur, certified Master Transformational NLP practitioner, and a leading voice and expert in soul-led business and psychedelic-assisted transformation. She has guided hundreds of visionary leaders, change makers, coaches, and psychedelic pioneers to step into their highest potential, make a meaningful impact, and live in alignment with their soul's deepest purpose. And you can learn more about her work at bethaweinstein.com. So, Beth, the topic of your interview today is You Are the Medicine, Unlocking Your Highest Potential with Psychedelic-Assisted Transformation for Soul-Led Leadership. And so could you begin, Beth, by sharing with us a little bit more about your story and how you came to be doing this work? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always so interesting to reflect back on our life paths and see how we got here. And I was just telling someone the other day how when I was a kid, I had these what you might call like spiritual activations. I didn't have that language until just a few years ago when I looked back and I was like, what was happening at that young age? But it was probably around 7, 8 years old where I really started to question, like, why are we here? What is the point of this? And I actually remember the exact moment where I had an awareness of impermanence, of death. And it wasn't from someone dying. It was just this awareness where I'm like, wow, okay, this is a temporary experience. So what's the point of it? And this was like 8 years old. So I was always just kind of on this inquisitive path to understand what our life's purpose was, what the point of being a human being was, how to make meaning out of this experience. And at that young age, I started kind of doing these exercises where I would look inside of my brain and wonder how it worked and why I thought the way I did and why I did what I did. And that just started off this whole path of exploration. Then as a teenager, I had my very first psychedelic journey. And interestingly enough, I ended up doing it by myself, which is probably not the typical way of doing it when you're 14 years old. But it really opened me up to a deeper understanding that there's much more to this thing that we call reality. And our potential was probably a lot bigger than what we were being told. So that started it. And the reality was I knew I was here to be an entrepreneur at a very young age. I could feel it in my being, my body. I even used to play a game that was like pretending we had a business back when we were little kids, me and my best friend. But I was programmed by a very typical American family, which was you go to college, you get a good job, you buy a house, and then that's your life. Like you just, you work to buy things and be comfortable. I was not raised with this kind of expansive way of living that it was like, oh, follow your heart and feel what's alive for you. It was never about that. It was about security and safety and just doing what you're told, which is a very typical programming here in the Western world, especially America and the West. And from that generation that my parents came from. But I knew that there had to be something more. Of course, there was so much fear inside of me. I went and did what I was told. I went to college, I got the job, but I always knew I was here for something more. Yes, it was fun to, have some experience and make some money. But when people ask, like, what do you want to do? It was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know how. I knew I wanted to make a difference in the world. And my difference was not going to come from an office job that just paid the bills and didn't really excite me. So, like a lot of people, the way I handled being in a job that didn't fulfill me, that actually made me pretty miserable, is, I went on the path of numbing and essentially self-destruction. I had done drugs, I was a partier, I was, like young and crazy rave kid and doing all the things and living that kind of fast-paced life in New York City, but I was drinking all the time, numbing myself out, getting into destructive habits. But deep inside, I knew that there had to be a better way. I started having what I would call different levels of spiritual activations through a series of initiations. Losing my father suddenly in my late 20s without any warning, and having that really impact me and say, well, I watched my dad go through life at the same job, and then he retired and he died, 15 years prematurely, like very soon after he retired. And that really made me question, like, wow, is that all this is about? Is we just work at jobs that we hate and then we retire and then we could die like weeks later? I mean, so I really just started to question everything. And throughout that, I was going through my own personal transformations, really questioning my soul's path, what I was doing for my work, and having a lot of these kind of spiritual activations and awakening through my own, near-death illness, sicknesses that set me back, different initiations, losing a job, losing my father, losing my boyfriend at the time's father. And each one of these initiatory experiences really had me go through an awakening. And each time I went through one of these, it was bringing me deeper and deeper to this recognition of like, wow, I need to make some changes. Something's not working. And I knew that a lot of it was connected to my work, my job, and my career path, because I was still in the safe path. I had been dreaming of starting a business. I had been a really big runner, running marathons and ultra marathons, and I had been working in the fashion industry, and I had dreamed of starting this running clothing brand. But of course, I was stuck in fear and lack of belief in myself, and how could I do that? And who am I to do that for about 8 years? But through many of these initiations, I was almost forced to give it a try. I got to a breaking point where I wasn't getting a job. I was totally miserable. My health was suffering. And I knew if I didn't at least try to start my dream business, then I wouldn't be able to go through life saying like, at least I gave it a try. So I had this space where I just was unemployed and no one was giving me a job. And I was like, well, I might as well try starting a business while I have this space and I still look for a job. And lo and behold, that business started taking off. And because of that, I started getting people asking me for help to start their business. And I was just doing this for fun, helping people left and right, like giving out tons of free advice. And after a few years of helping numerous people, I started to notice that I would sit with people for 2 or 3 hours, give them everything I knew. And then I would run into them a year later and I'd say, how's your business? And they'd say, oh, I never started it. And I'm like, what went wrong? Like, I just told you everything. Why didn't you start it? And I realized that not a lot of people are natural entrepreneurs. People need accountability. They need someone to hold them through the fear and the doubts and the, lack of belief in themselves and actually hold them in a step-by-step process. At the same time, I also had lots of signs from the universe and people telling me, you should be a coach. Have you ever thought of being a career coach? Maybe you should do business coaching. And I actually didn't even know there was such a thing as this. I was like, oh, people get paid to help people with this? Like, what do you mean? And it was just kind of, like following what was naturally coming through me. I feel like it was, divinely guided, like as a channel. I just started helping people. And then it got to that point of, you know what, maybe if I charge people and work with them for a few months, maybe they'll get results. That's how I got my first client. I just made a decision. I was like, next person who asks me, I'm going to tell them they have to pay me and commit to a certain amount of time. And that's how I got my first client. And next thing you know, I just declared it. I was like, wow, this is fun. Maybe I could do this with more people. And then I got another client. And then I just started taking it seriously while I was also running my other business and probably still looking for some jobs out of that fear. And it was one of these moments where it was just kind of like an all or nothing. I just went for it. It felt aligned. I really loved it. I enjoyed it. And next thing you know, when I fully committed to my coaching business after running these other businesses, it just started to take off. Throughout this whole journey, there was also, even though I had been working with psychedelics for many years since I was a teenager, I started to deepen into my relationship with psilocybin and ayahuasca and these really powerful plant medicines that would give me some illuminations that were, by the way, already living inside of me. They were already coming through my intuition, coming through naturally. But they would kind of just reconfirm what I knew was inside of me. They would basically show me, like, here's what you're meant to be doing. Here's what's like, imagine what it would be like if you could be doing this all the time. And I had this one vision that was like the last straw. And it was just a vision of me helping people that I loved and having a good time. And it was very playful and light and fun. And I was like, well, wait, why couldn't I just do that? Like, what if that's real? What if it's not just a vision? And what if this was something I could try? So I had actually recently read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, and I decided to just go on a surrender experiment. And, I'd already declared myself a coach at that point, but I was like, you know what? Let me just like go in and surrender and just follow that vision and have fun with it. And, here we are, what, 12 years later? I forgot what it's been now. What year are we in? Yeah, it's been about like 11, 12 years. And it's like, wow, this is the longest job I've ever had, by the way. And it's been great. And I love it. And it's just so interesting to see how these initiations and spiritual activations and then the plant medicines and all these other moments in life were coinciding with my soul's path, which is what I've noticed coaching people for many years. I've gotten clients who are, coming off of chronic illnesses or these kind of major losses or, job situations that don't work out, or like these initiatory events that really wake them up, like losing, a spouse or a parent or having their life crumble. And it's unfortunate. No one wants to have negative initiatory events, but if they're designed to bring you more into alignment with your soul, then you have to listen to them. And sometimes some of us, it's like if you're not learning by really tuning in with your intuition, then sometimes the universe has to do it for you. So I'm the one that really helps people get into that alignment and make it a reality. Because if you don't really listen to what's coming through you naturally, what's channeling through your soul, then you might have some of these, situations happen. And I always say, look, you might as well take the steps now so you don't have to go through that. So that's kind of how I ended up on this path and what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's so powerful, the courage that it takes to step out of the safe path and be open to what happens, be open to what's meant to be. And so I just love hearing that in your story. And
Yeah.
this concept of working with the initiations, that's something in my work too. It's so important because we're going through major initiations at this time as a collective. I mean, individually too, and as a collective. And so how can we work with those initiations? How can we actually see that this is guiding us toward our higher path? So I love all of that in your work. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now this is a really interesting combination that you bring together in guiding people to, as we're working with psychedelics, to let that fuel our leadership, our purpose, our passion, our mission. So could you tell us more about that? How do psychedelics assist us with getting on our purpose path, with finding our entrepreneurship or leadership, or however that may show up for us?
Yeah. Yeah. First, I always like to just say, like, psychedelics aren't for everybody. If you're called to them, great. If you're really not, there's other pathways, right? I do believe all these paths of non-ordinary states of consciousness, of awakening, they all bring us to the same place, which is really, who are we at the core of this incarnation? Like, what is our deepest essence? What is our soul asking us to, bring to this reality? What is channeling through us? And psychedelics and sacred plant medicines tend to be kind of, a very fast path to that. What I've witnessed over the years with myself and all my clients is that very often there's something already alive. Usually most people know if you're in a job or a career or a life path and it's not really lighting you up, you're feeling this heaviness and stuckness, and as one of my clients had put it, like a low-grade depression, just kind of this like dissatisfaction where, you might own a house and have all the nice things and go on vacations and raise a family and you've checked all those boxes, but then you feel like something's missing. And this is a common thing I'm finding, mostly in the Western world, but I think all over the world, that so many people are going through the motions. It's like we're doing all that we are supposed to do. And there's this general sense of like, I must earn money. And the fear of like, well, I need to do this because if I follow my heart, then it's not going to work. But who says? So what happens is when you get to that point of that kind of dissatisfaction or depression or this low grade, like knowing that something's not really working anymore, you start to have, hopefully, there's ideas coming through. If you take some time to slow down, meditate, get in touch with yourself, be more grounded on the earth, be in more contemplative prayer type work, whatever you want to call it, you start to have ideas and downloads that come through. And when you then step into a medicine ceremony or some kind of medicine journey, what often very often happens is this will be illuminated. It will show you where there's a misalignment, what isn't serving you, what's not working. And maybe it's destructive patterns. Maybe I actually just posted in my Facebook group the other day about how many people have quit drinking or doing like harmful patterns because they've started working with psychedelics. And psychedelics will show you, well, this is where numbing yourself with alcohol isn't working, or this one pattern of running or spending money or, whatever it is to numb yourself is not working. And so then it'll show you this. And then very often it'll show you the possibility of what is there for your life. And usually, most of the time, it's something that's intuitively already in you. Maybe you've been suppressing it, or maybe you've been kind of like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't make my art, or I can't start a business, or yeah, I know I'm a healer, but I'll never make money from it. All these deep limiting beliefs, sometimes not even conscious. And the one beauty of the plant medicines or the psychedelic medicines is they have you really tune into that part of your true self, like what is truly possible. And very often it will illuminate like, okay, there's some beliefs or there's patterns or there's something in the way. And there's ways to work with it, especially with guidance, through the preparation, maybe the journey and the integration of, okay, well, what is the intention? If your intention is to find your purpose or take the first steps towards your next, purpose or your next path, then these medicines become great allies that will help us like find that confidence, really see the possibility, have us to know that, our life is so much bigger than what our programming has taught us to believe. And, when I say program, that's either conscious or not conscious, where it's like there's beliefs and patterns and, programs running that most often keep people stuck in the same holding pattern, and this is what causes people to feel, stuck, unfulfilled, like there's something more, but I don't know what it is. And that's something that I really believe, the more people that really follow this path of their higher self, of what's lighting them up, the more we will have what I would call like heart-centered leaders. We will have bigger impact on earth because then you're going to be happier. You're going to be of service in some way. Those around you are going to feel your energy and be happier around you. And it becomes this domino effect. The more people that are just like miserable going through the motions of what they're supposed to do, the more it's like, well, then you go, road rage on the road on your drive home, or you go to a store and you're just in a foul mood because you had a terrible day at the office. And it becomes the domino effect, but we have a choice to have the domino effect of something that's a lot more aligned and positive and joyful. And I do believe the more people that are living in this way, the more we can actually create a greater transformation on earth. And I do really feel like we need more leaders like this. It's not like everybody's pretty much everybody I know is complaining about something in the world these days. It's so alive right now. Everybody's feeling this kind of like unhappiness or this dissatisfaction or an awareness, like things feel like they're uncertain and crumbling. And it's like, okay, we can talk about it and point fingers and blame political leaders or blame the 50%, the other half or whatever, or we can actually do our part to plant our own seeds. Like, where are we putting our seeds? Like, where's your energy going? Where's your attention going? And it doesn't mean everybody's here to be like the next Dalai Lama, but it's like, where's your domino effect? Like, where's your giving to your community or stepping out there as a leader or helping others around you? And it doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be like, are you sharing your art? Are you writing that book you wanted to write? Are you singing those songs? Like anything like this. And that's where I really believe our world needs more of this. If we're going to actually create a new reality and make it a better place for the next 7 generations and beyond that, like I do believe this is a key part of it. Because we see in our society, people talk about how much anxiety and depression and trauma there is. And yes, that's a part of the reality. But if we stop and actually ask the question, like, what is causing the depression? What's causing the anxiety? And yes, maybe it is something to do with like, well, I don't like those leaders or whatever, but where is it just you in your own life first and foremost? Like looking inside first, because that's the only thing we truly have control over in this reality. Like we can't control the weather. We can't control, snowstorm hitting where I live or whatever it is, but we can control our programming, our reactions to things, and we can control like the choices we make in our life and how we want to put ourselves out there with our energy, with our hearts, with our care and compassion. And that's what I really believe leadership is. I don't think leadership is necessarily just like, how many followers do you have on Instagram? It's so much deeper than that. It's like energetic leadership. I think that's what I said. I said this to someone else in an interview like a year and a half ago. I said it's more like on an energetic level. Like who do we want to be and stand for to be that change in the world? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is so important what you're saying about what reality are we creating with our thoughts and with our energy and with how we're choosing to live each day. And there is just such a big difference between, if we're doing what we love, either, following our purpose or making art or music or whatever it is that we love, or, spending more time with our kids, that would be so unique to each person. Or are we like forcing ourselves to go through the motions of what we've been told we have to do? And
Yeah.
how can we step out of that, what we thought we had to do, and into more of what we love? And I know for me, working with plant medicines has been such a portal into like getting the big picture view, like cutting through the crap of this, nonsense that we worry about on a day-to-day basis and looking at it. Okay, what's really important here? What really
Yeah.
matters to me? What do I really love? What is really important for the earth and and other beings here? There's such a depth of understanding that comes with that kind of work.
Yeah.
um
The
so
big picture. Yeah.
picture, yeah, the big picture view, the eagle eye view. So I'm so curious to know about your work and what you've seen with your clients with psychedelics and plant medicines. How do they help us to really get to the next level or get to the next paradigm related to our life and related to our purpose?
Yeah, and this is something I've been interviewing people on, my summits and my podcast for years about this too, is like, well, these have been here for thousands and thousands of years, but why is it that, especially in the West, there's this exponential growth the last, 30, 40, 50 years, and especially the last like 10 years, right? 10, 15, 20. And I do believe it's no coincidence that they're, like, for example, let's say ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is, traditionally originally found in South America and only grown in certain regions of the world. And then it made its way to Hawaii, and then it's made its way, around the planet. And I now know some countries where you just wouldn't expect it. It's pretty much everywhere. And there's a lot of questions as to why, why has it spread its vine all over the place? Even psilocybin, it's, which actually does grow in multiple places, but why has this become just so, widely accepted and used? And now it's, of course, legal in some places. They're accepting it as legal benefits for therapeutic use, which is great. But what I've seen is it really, especially when people are stuck in patterns, most human beings, there's literally only like one person I know who doesn't seem to have this. And I think that's because he actually has a little bit of Asperger's. But other than that, most everybody has these not conscious patterns running their reality. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just part of the human experience. We can all kind of equate it to some kind of trauma, whether it's our life or ancestral or trauma of just being a human being, because my trauma is your trauma and it's all our trauma. We all share it because there is no actual separation. So what happens is we've developed these strategies to function in the world. And for some people, it might be, there's like this deep fear of their survival and safety, a feeling of security. For some people, it's, a deep need to belong. For some people, it's, there's like a worthiness or a lack of worthiness or an imposter syndrome. I mean, I could go on and on. There's so many different patterns running that are getting in the way of us really living our truest life, like our truest essence, our truest purpose. Like, who are we really underneath the masks, the patterns, the defense mechanisms, the strategies that are actually like really have been truly running our lives? But who are we when all of that is stripped away? When it really just becomes like our heart and what's inside of us. And this is what plant medicines can really help with, is this purification process. Everybody hears these stories of these like miraculous, like I drank ayahuasca once, or I worked with DMT and now all of a sudden XYZ. Those do happen. I wouldn't say they're it's not everybody. It's not always the norm that like one session heals everything. But, slowly it can help us really find our open heart and really start to see like, oh, well, here's the way I've been operating. And like, you know what? I feel like I'm starting to see it. That's not serving me. There's these fears, these beliefs, these patterns, these traumas that are really running me, that are keeping me from having highly connected relationships, from feeling safe on earth no matter what I do for a living, for knowing that my connection to spirit is holding me. Then that's a whole other thing. So many people are disconnected from not only themselves, which is the number one, right? People are so disconnected, dissociated from like, what do they really want and need? You ask a regular person, a lot of people don't even know the answer. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to work because I should, and I have bills to pay. It's like, what do you really want? What's really alive for you? So first there's like developing the connection to yourself. Then, where's the connection to the earth, our great mother that provides everything, to the elements, the water, the sun, the trees, the air, the spirit. Then there's that spiritual connection. How many people, and there's no judgment here, there's no right or wrong, but the more we can connect to ourselves, the earth, this, something greater, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, the more we can actually feel safe to open up and let these masks down and really become our truest self, because that's what you're here to do. That's why you're incarnated here, is to become the truest essence of yourself. They say it's like, okay, remembering who you truly are. And a lot of this gets thrown around where people are like, oh yeah, I know who I am, but do you really? And so what happens is when you step into these plant medicine or other psychedelic experiences, they can really help with this. Of course, I personally believe they truly only help when you have some kind of other person or people witnessing you. The true healing is done in relationship because our whole reality is centered around relating with others. Yeah, you could just go meditate on a mountaintop by yourself the rest of your life. Maybe it'll be okay. But majority of people are interacting with other beings. We're in relation, we're relational beings. So, having someone to help you process through these experiences, to help guide you, to help you integrate and make the most out of them so you can actually get the healing that these plant medicines are so known for and they're so helpful with. So what I've seen is all of this is connected to what you're doing in the world, how much money you're making in your business, like how much impact you're having. I mean, it's not why we do it, but it's all interconnected. And I've seen this year after year after year. I have clients where, and it's not just the psychedelics, it's the integration, it's the bringing it back into this 3D reality of like, okay, how are you bringing it back to your life? But what I've seen is when people take the steps and really truly integrate these experiences, suddenly, their business takes off, or they meet someone, or they've manifested a new home, or an opportunity has come about. And sometimes it truly feels like magic. Along with doing, and this is something I offer and I bring into my work, looking at these not conscious programs that are running, which most people don't know about because they're not in awareness. But when you have someone holding you, guiding you through a certain process to help you make sense and see like, oh, now I see that. That's what's been running. Okay, well, let's do the work to clear that up, and it's not about getting rid of, it's about actually bringing it up into the light and integrating it. And there are certain techniques that I can do that help change it permanently. And this is where when one piece of that, unconscious programming is shifting, or like, I always use this analogy of like a bunch of grapes. Like you pull out a few grapes, then the entire bunch shifts and there's more space for whatever it is you desire to open up and come in. And this is how real transformation happens, but it has to be done with the integration. It's not going to be the plants doing it to you. Even though sometimes I will say I've had these experiences where it's like, whoa, but you have to be really, ready and able to take that in and then integrate it in. So even if you have, a life-changing experience with a plant medicine or a psychedelic, then what? Yeah, it might happen like for a split second during an experience, but what are you going to do with that? And that's where I've seen it help people become leaders, become heart-centered entrepreneurs, go create their reality, call in relationships and, opportunities. And I don't like to say I use the medicine for optimization, but it is here as an ally. And I think when we connect to the spirit of these medicines with our intention, with our prayers, with our like, hey, I want to, I want to be more fulfilled, but I also want to bring my unique medicine to the world. I want to make an impact. I want to, share my art, or I want to be the healer that I truly am. If you have this intention and you go in and you work with these spirits of these medicines as helping allies, just like any other kind of help, then it is going to work with you. It's like being in a relationship where you're like, okay, here's what I want. Let's do this together. And then it becomes this conversation. And I do believe it's, your higher self, your soul, whatever you want to call it, this conversation between the truth of who you are, and having these spirit beings. And, we can go into like the other unseen realms, there's so many beings and, the unseen that's here to help us, but we have to ask for it, and that's the one place where a lot of people miss out, where they're like, what? Yeah, you have to request the help. You can't just like sit back and wait for life to totally just land in your lap. It's like it's a co-creation. It's a co-journey. So the plants aren't doing something to us. We are in relationship with the plants. And when you enter into this, it's just incredible to see the miracles that can happen and how fast things can change. And by the way, I'm sure you would agree with me. Um, the energies of these times have been moving so fast and just so different than they were, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Everything's moving faster now. Everything's just, it feels much more supportive too. Meaning I have witnessed change in my clients faster and faster and faster each year. And the more that people come in with like their heart and the intention and like really like, I'm going to do this. I'm willing to get out of my comfort zone. I'm willing to work with Beth. And like, it's kind of like you have to leap and the net will appear. The net has been appearing so much quicker. And it's so exciting to watch. And by the way, some of my teachers who've been doing this for 35, 40 years, they also said the same thing. Every teacher I have who happens to be elders, they're like, things are just moving so much faster, which feels really good. Where I keep saying to people, like, what are you waiting for? Like, now's the time. If you come in with your heart and intention, like anything's possible. And this is where I do believe that we can really work together as a humanity to create a reality much faster than we think. And I've talked to more and more people about this every single day. There's a lot of indigenous tribes around the world that agree with this sentiment. And it's like, well, now's the time to just do it. Like we're getting to that point. I mean, I believe we've been to that point, but like now it's like, okay, we can point the fingers and complain about people and yell about X and Y and othering the 50% that you don't like. But wait, why don't we actually just go create what we do want? And that's where I'm so glad you're doing this summit, because I'm like, that's what we need to be doing. It's
Yeah.
like, it's so possible. And it's, there's a Rudolf Steiner quote. I can't quote it exactly. And I really need to memorize it because I've been quoting it a lot lately. But he basically ends it by saying it's going to have to be the unseen realms that help us through this time that we're in. There's nothing left other than that. Because
Yeah.
we've tried it for the last, millennia, and something's not working. So, okay, well, now we got to try it a different way.
Yes, I so agree with all of that you're saying. And it's, I like to say that, the both sides of the polarity are here with us. Like as we see the craziness and the chaos amplifying in the world and the fast pace of that, which we might consider negative, there's also the amplification of all of our creation ability, all the potentials, all the positive that we can create is equally becoming more and more available to us, So we just get to choose that side. And it's incredible. And yeah, like logic and reason are not the way. I mean, it's part of it. It's a part of it. And they're like tools that we can use, but the unseen realms, all the help that we're receiving, all of our guides, the forces of nature are kicking in to support us and accelerate us toward this brighter future. So yeah,
Yeah.
as you know, deeply agree with
Yeah. And I am an optimist. Like everybody right now seems like a pessimist, which is so, I'm like, where are the optimists out there? But I was telling someone a story. I think today's Wednesday. I think I was just telling this yesterday or the day before, and now I forgot where. But this summer I was working with a community, doing prayer work, and working with tobacco, and like just kind of in ceremony and prayer. And we did this one exercise where we picked a place on earth that we wanted to help clean up, like oceans or litter or something that, just everybody picked a place. And I had picked a place that I had been to, or I'd driven by multiple times in Peru, where it was this one road that you have to drive on to get to a place where I go in northern Peru. And the road has so much garbage. And it's not just because it's Peru. It's actually, as I tell people, it's because they don't have garbage pickup. And here in America, we do have garbage pickup. That's pretty much the only difference, is that we don't see it and they do. It's not that they actually have more litter, it's just waste management. So that's an interesting thing to think about. But anyways, this road would have just like garbage on both sides of the street for a few miles. And it was like, oh, your heart is just hurting seeing it. And I was like, I'm going to work on that road and like try to clean it up. So we were in this ceremony and prayer, and like we just intention. And we had done this on and off for a few months, but there was this one. And then I happened to go to Peru a few weeks after, and to the same place, and we had to drive on that one road. And oddly, can't make this stuff up. I was like, we were driving on it, and I'm like, is this the same road? And I've been on this road, multiple times in my life. And I was like, that's weird. It has way less garbage than I had last year when I was there exactly the year before. And I didn't say anything to anybody. I was just like, I noticed it, and interesting. And when we got to our final destination, actually, our common friend who was with me said to me, Beth, did you notice that road had less garbage than normal? And I was like, oh my God, Karen, I have to tell you, we were doing some, and I was like, maybe that's a coincidence, but holy crap. Like, I was just like, okay, I don't believe it was me, but I believe in the possibility. And it was interesting to watch, where I was like, well, where'd that garbage go? Someone cleaned it up. Somehow it's not there. And I do believe, I mean, there's groups doing this. I know the Heart Math Institute does a lot of collective meditations. There's a lot of groups around the world that are doing this together. And I'm like, what if we actually did hold this, like picked a place and held a vision, got a group together and do intentional work around something, like whatever it is that you want to change. And we'll see. I mean, I do believe it's going to have to get to that point at some level. And I don't want it to, but what if we hold the vision of what we do want more than the vision of like pointing the fingers at crazy people?
Yes. Yes. And I love your story. We are so much more powerful than we know. And like you said, it's not about us, but it's about our connection to the all, and how much support and help we have to make these things happen that we don't even think are possible, but they are. And
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful example of it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you, Beth. This has been so fun to talk with you. Is
Oh,
there is there any last words of wisdom or message you would like to give us in closing?
yeah, the one thing that's been coming up lately is that there's so much fear, this vibration of fear. And I get it. I'm not a spiritual bypasser, and I understand that people are having a hard time processing the fast changes happening, especially here in America. But at the same time, I do believe, it's like we have a choice for how we want to handle it. I always say, like, what if we channeled anger and upset and frustration and fear into, what you're here to do, the difference you want to make? Like, if you're an artist or a healer, or you're called to be a coach or a psychedelic guide or whatever it is, anything like that. It's like, well, what could you do to take the steps towards making a difference and planting your seed? Like, I call it like being the Zen gardener, like plant your seed, do something positive instead of maybe just channeling it all into like the anxiety and the fear and the depression. It's like, how can we hold both? Because I don't believe it's like, oh, just ignore it, but like really hold both. Like, the grief over the earth and the grief over the pollution, but also, okay, well, I'm upset over this pollution, so I'm going to do my part to help how I can, which is make a difference in the lives of others, and maybe they're not directly connected, but I think energetically they are. So I would say, if you have fear or doubts or beliefs or limiting beliefs holding you back, like get support. There's so many great people out there offering, coaching, therapy, a mix. I have things. Jocelyn has many offerings. But I always say, like, what are you waiting for? Like we have this one incarnation, and the one thing about losing a father pretty early and going through other losses and deaths and, my family and my life is to really realize like this life is precious, and, it's only this once right now. So what are we doing with it? And it's in the end, it's like, it's our choice. So if you feel this fear, sadness, doubt, depression, anxiety, like get some support and turn it around. And there's always a way. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Beth. This has been really fun, really inspiring to talk with you today. And I know you have a wonderful free gift for our audience. So would you like to share a few words about that? It is the integrating psychedelics and sacred medicines into a transformational business.
Yeah. Yes, this is an easy training that's a step-by-step training for those that want to either start or grow some kind of business. Usually I call it transformational coaches, healers, people who want to make a difference, body workers, anybody in this space who really wants to make a difference in the world. This will teach you how you can actually start it up and get some clients. And it also talks about how maybe you want to bring in some plant medicines and psychedelics either into your actual work or how to work with them to help you on your path. So there's a little bit of both because it's all one. But even if you don't want to bring psychedelics into your business, this training will help you get your business off the ground, give you clarity, and take the first steps that cost nothing to get it started. So yeah, that's what it's about.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for offering that to everybody. And it sounds amazing. So everybody definitely go and grab that free gift from Beth. You can scroll down right below this video and you will find it right there, easy to access. And Beth, where can people find you online? Any exciting announcements or upcoming things that you would like to share about?
Yeah. I can be found at my website, bethweinstein.com. I have a podcast, Medicine for These Times. I'm also on all the platforms, Instagram and whatnot, Beth A. Weinstein. When this comes out, I'm trying to think what I have coming up. I might be running my 7-week intensive program. I haven't decided yet. I know right now when we're recording this, I have a program I'm running with a really brilliant good friend of mine that's all around the energetics of psilocybin and remembering and restoring the missing pieces in contemporary psychedelic practice. So that's open now. We might run it again in the fall, who knows? But otherwise, I do offer one-on-one coaching. I have VIP day, I have private, and I also am deepening into a new offering that's integrating low dose, microdose assisted psychedelics with transformational neurolinguistic programming for those that really want to uncover blocks and get out of their own way so they can live the life that they want. This involves no actual tangible work other than you showing up for sessions. But if you're stuck in your business or your life or want to make more money or you feel like something's blocking you or in the way, this modality it's been one of the most effective modalities for me. So I'm bringing more of it into my work. And I have a very short program that integrates a little bit of microdosing along with the transformational neurolinguistic programming to help you reprogram your subconscious and create the life that you love. So I'm really excited for that as well. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. You're doing so many wonderful things. Thank you for bringing all of this to the world and helping so many people.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so, and I'm sure if people sign up for your free gift, then they will get notifications when all of those opportunities are available, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Beth, so much. Much love to you. It's been wonderful, wonderful having this conversation today. And everybody out there, I hope you've received so much from this conversation. And I will see you again soon in our next interview. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.